All right, good evening and welcome to the September 22nd Town Council meeting. If you would, kindly rise and join us in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For announcements, I only have upcoming meetings Thursday, October 13th at 7 p.m., Thursday, October 27th, and 7 p.m., and November 3rd at 7 p.m. Regular meetings of the council all here in the Matthew Thornton room. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Senior Fair is back. It will be held Wednesday, October 26th from 9 a.m. to noon at the John O'Leary Center. There will be a lot of new agencies and groups that are here to assist our elderly population. We encourage all our seniors to attend. There is no registration and is open to the public. Merrimack TV will be covering this Friday's Merrimack High School varsity football game against Bishop Gurdon and the marching band's halftime show. Kickoff is at 6:30 p.m. and you can go and watch it on cable channel 21 or high definition channel 1071. You can even watch it online at merrimacktv.com and other streaming devices. I really can't say what's next here because for those that know me, I'm green and gold all the way, so I can't say go BG, but I guess I got to say go Tomahawks.
Perfect. All right.
Can you repeat the date and time for Senior Fair?
Yes, the Senior Fair is Wednesday, October 26th from 9 a.m. to noon. If you do have any questions about the Senior Fair, you can call the Welfare Director, Pat Murphy, and I'm sure she'll be more than happy to answer all your questions and what's going on.
Great. Thanks, Paul. All right. Under appointments, we had a scheduled meeting with the Zoning Board of Adjustment to give us our update, but that's going to be postponed to a future meeting. I couldn't make it this evening. We have no public hearings, legislative updates. The only thing, I don't know if anybody's here. No. What I've received from Representative Bob Healy was just basically an announcement that there's $35 million in funding for emergency energy assistance for qualifying New Hampshire households. It's now available to help with the high energy prices for this fall and winter. Inquiries regarding eligibility and applying for assistance can be made by calling Southern New Hampshire Services Fuel Assistance Program at 603-889-3440. And we're going to be putting that on the town website as well. I don't know if it's there yet, but it will be shortly. And I think there's no other updates from our representatives. Town managers report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Public Works Department will be hosting a local concerns meeting for the US 3 Wire Road Intersection Safety Improvement Project on Monday, September 26th at 6 p.m. here in the Matthew Thornton Room. The purpose of the meeting is to provide stakeholders with information on the need of a possible scope for the project and to receive stakeholder input on concerns in the area to better inform the selection of alternate projects for the US 3 Wire Road intersection. The transfer station will once again be hosting a Freon appliance recycling event this year. Bring your air conditioners, refrigerators, freezers, and dehumidifiers to the transfer station on Saturday, October 15th, and the $15 charge for each appliance will be covered through Eversource and New Hampshire Saves programs. Eversource staff will be at the event to discuss rebate opportunities on new appliances as well. And finally, the town received notification from the New Hampshire Department of Transportation this week that the Southhegan River Trail project plans, specifications, and estimates have been approved by NHDOT and FHWA, Federal Highway Administration. We have been granted authorization to proceed with the bidding of the project and anticipate advertising of this project on October 14th, with the bids to be open on November 15th. Right now, Nelson is dancing in his living room. This project, for those that don't recall, Southhegan River Trail is the river trail that runs along the Southhegan River by the fire station and will connect up through the high school property to Wildcat Falls.
Great. All right, next on the agenda, there's no consent agenda under old business, which we were taking up from our last meeting on September 8th, is the council to consider the proposed amendments to the Health Division's fee schedule for food service establishment licenses.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair.
We need to move that off the table.
Oh, we do.
Yes.
I make a motion that we take this subject off the table from
Motion
last.
by Tom
meeting.
Koenig,
Second.
seconded by Barbara. All those in favor of taking it off the table, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. 600. And by the way, Nancy Harrington has been excused for this evening.
But she's watching on TV, I bet. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We came before you, or we are coming before the council for a couple reasons. One is that we want to be transparent, and the other one is to notify some of our food establishments that the licensing fees will be changing as of January 1st, in accordance with our ordinance that states that we should be following the state when they change their restaurant license fees structure. The reason why it was brought to my attention in late 2019, early 2020, that these fees have changed. And at that time, the pandemic was just starting up. And when we were getting ready to bring it to the council, the pandemic was kind of in full swing. So we really didn't think it was fair to put a burden on these restaurants that were having to close their doors because of the pandemic and nobody was going out to these establishments with this additional fee. So we talked about it a couple times, and now that the pandemic is over, we feel it's time to reinstate these fees that that have been in place with the state of New Hampshire since 2019. We are one of 14 communities that are self-inspecting. So a restaurant fee is the same in every other community out there. There are some communities that might be a little bit higher and charge a little bit more, but this is the standard set by the state, and we follow it. It's not fair for a business here in Merrimack to pay X and a business maybe at another location to be paying X plus because the state changed their fee. So we just feel that it's fair across the board, increase based on our ordinance. Now, if the town council would like the ordinance to change, Erin Olson, my health officer, Chief Mark DeFranzo, and myself would be more than happy to work on those changes in the ordinance. But our ordinance does say that we will follow the state of New Hampshire. When they increase their fees, we will increase our fees as well. Thank you.
Great.
And I have Erin here to answer any technical questions on what an F4, F5, C3 restaurant is.
Very good. Barbara, you had some things you would like to speak to?
Yeah, I had a bunch of questions, and thank you, Erin, for answering those. You know, I can appreciate all the work that you did on this to try to move this along, and I know that the state and the charter, you know, say this is what's going to happen. One of the questions I asked was, does any of this money go back to the state? And the answer was no. Oops, sorry. That it all stays within the town. You know, although we delayed this because of COVID, now we have a whole different situation. We have a situation where our restaurants are seeing increases that are just astronomical. I already know of one restaurant that's talking about closing their doors when their lease ends in December. You know, what used to cost $25 for a gallon of cooking oil now costs nearly $100. For several of the businesses that rely on electrical equipment in their kitchen because they're not plumbed for gas or propane, what used to be maybe not quite $1,000 in electrical costs are now upwards close to $4,000 a month. It's going to cost a lot of burgers before you make that up and be able to pay your lease. So although some of these changes are just, you know, dollars or not even $100 or $200, for people who are now, for these businesses now on the line, on the brink of possible bankruptcy and closing the doors, this is just like another stab in the back as far as I'm concerned. And it has nothing to do with Aaron and I mean, what has to happen has to happen. But we've delayed it this long. Can we delay it maybe until June 1st? Maybe give another 6 months for the economy to stabilize, maybe for some of these electrical and other charges to actually diminish a little bit? Because the president says, costs are coming down. So is there any way we can do this and still stay within the spirit of the law? Because we've done it, we've held it off this long.
Oh,
Okay.
We just needed to consult here because I asked when are the restaurant licenses gonna start.
Yeah.
And basically they're all different dates. So
rolling?
it's a rolling thing. So if you register in the first 6 months from January to June 30th, say we start July 1st, you'll be on the old rate, and then the people from July rolling forward will be on the new rate. So that's why we picked January 1st, because everybody rolls in the year to roll that out. So I don't know if that helps, hinders, answers your question, but that's what we were consulting about just then.
any further discussion?
Seems to me that not only are the restaurants feeling the pinch, but so are the people. And so, and I can't get a meal near the price I could last year. So they're raising their rates already anyway, and taking into account the cost of materials and supplies and stuff. I'm not sure it's behooving us at all to concern ourselves as a council with the expenses that the restaurants are dealing with and passing along to their customers. I guess I'm not following your argument completely. Your discussion or presentation, whatever.
May I?
Oh, yes.
It's just that, these are very small businesses, in the smallest, in some respects, of the small. And they are hitting the price increase. And a lot of them don't want to actually increase their restaurant prices or their food prices to actually reflect their cost, because then people wouldn't go out to eat. So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, trying to at least keep the doors open, the lights on, and at the same time, not not really bankrupt their customers by trying to buy a hamburger. Because who's going to buy a hamburger at $25?
Not me, but
Yep.
then I'm paying
But that's what I mean.
15 now when I
Yeah.
used to pay 8.
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
um,
Granted, the market will only bear so much, but still.
I know the difficulty of which you speak because I've spoken to a couple of restaurant owners, and one of them went up $3,100 in their electric bill this past month from the previous. But anyhow, I think this should have naturally happened. I believe as a council, we should have a discussion so that it is clear to the public what has happened, but this requires no vote for this to automatically go up. That it was delayed, I guess I just didn't even think about it. When the state raised theirs, I just personally wasn't aware, I guess. But so I don't know if it would require a vote to postpone it or what would be necessary, Paul.
What would be necessary is that there would have to be some kind, yes, there would have to be some kind of motion, because the ordinance says that they should be in effect right now. Underneath our ordinance, it says they should be in effect right now. And we're delaying them to January 1st to give some time for these businesses to come up and understand that, because we didn't think it was fair that somebody who renewed on September 30th got the old rate, and somebody who renewed on October 1st got the new rate. So we did January 1st. So everybody in the year would be getting the same rate. So
But would that happen regardless if if it's going to be a rolling thing as of July 1st, if that's the beginning, you wouldn't have to pay that
I would need a
until-
date saying
to start it, and then it
enact
would
this,
roll for
and
the
then it would
following
roll.
year.
Yeah, if you don't want to change the ordinance, but I would need a date saying this is when we're going to start.
Barbara?
Did we vote to delay this the first time when the
No,
rates changed? I don't remember talking
no,
about it.
we didn't. And that's why I don't know if it was an oversight because it, I mean, I don't even know if the health officer had to come to us for this. It would be an automatic. So, I personally, I have no, myself, I have no heartburn putting it off until July 1st. Oh, Andy, I'm sorry.
I'm just questioning, do we have the authority to not change the ordinance, but at the same time, not follow the ordinance? Or is the authority of this council solely to go through the public hearing process and change the ordinance? I mean, can we just unilaterally ignore the
good point.
ordinance?
That's a good question.
I would have to come forward again next meeting with the first read with the delay. With us changing the ordinance, saying we're gonna delay and be put in there for this time. It would have to be changed. The ordinance would have to be changed because honestly, they should be in effect.
Right.
But in fairness to businesses and everything
Right.
else, we're giving them until January 1st, which is a 90-day, little more than a 90-day notice. Less than a 90-day notice now. A little more than a 90-day notice now. So, but yeah, to do that, I think would in fact have to have an ordinance change.
If we were to delay it. So we're just going to wing it and go for the January 1st timeframe then, or should it be immediate? Unless
Well,
we're going to do an ordinance
we
change.
want to give proper notice
Well,
to
I
these
think so.
businesses too.
I agree.
You know,
I think the licenses are annual.
So when they come in, yeah.
yeah. So that was our thinking, is that everybody in the same year would pay the same amount too, and to give proper notice to everybody that as of January 1st, the license fee's going up.
All right, what's the pleasure of the council?
Nancy has a question.
Nancy?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the documentation that our health officer supplied us, and to Barbara's point, it's certainly, I mean, these have been rough times for the last couple of years, but it's been rough times across the state. It's not just in Merrimack, and I'm looking at the fees charged by other towns, and many of them are significantly more than ours. Like some places almost double. And
What are you looking at?
on
my-
page 3, the fees and establishment, the license fees, these are as of August 2022. I mean, like Class B, for example, in Merrimack, it's $250. Bedford's charging $450. Exeter's $450. Concord's $346. Salem's $350. I mean, that's just one line, and I don't even know what a Class B establishment is. But, I think it's a state ordinance, so that there is some equity across the state, and I think to keep things, I feel like we have an opportunity to sort of an expectation to be in compliance with our state law, and a number of, although nobody wants things to go up, because it impacts business owners, it impacts residents, but I think we're at a point where it's not just the town of Merrimack. It's just not, dining establishments here. It's across the state, and we've been out of compliance really since 2019. So I don't know. I mean, a few months' notice, I think, is in my mind is fair and reasonable, and again, not welcome by anybody, but
But we
It's
we
sort
can
of our best.
we can always set our own rates, but our problem is the violation of our own town charter.
It's our ordinance.
Yeah, so
Yeah. And to be clear, I would absolutely entertain changing the ordinance. I just want to make sure that, we're following within authority of what the town council has. We're not unilaterally going to ignore an ordinance. If we don't like it, we should go through the public process of change.
absolutely right.
Is my only point. I would absolutely, if entertain the idea of changing the fee structure. I just want to make sure we go through the right process.
So for Tom,
So I'm trying to get my thoughts straight at the same time here, and it's not working well. Why does the state set their fees why did the state raise their rates? Is it to cover expenses? Or what do the fees cover? Can you help us with that, Aaron? Is that?
None of the money goes there.
None of them goes to the state, but I mean, in general, when they set it there and everybody follows suit, which is what Bedford and Exeter have done, because they match the state exactly, which you were pointing out, Nancy. Are we raising the rates because our costs go up as well, or our fees, we need to cover our expenses, or
Can you hear me now? Is it on?
Is the
Alright.
light-
should be?
So the state, the food protection program in New Hampshire in 2019, they went through the process of changing HEP 2300, which is the state's food code, which is governed by the FDA food code. That year, a lot of other states in the country went forward with adopting 2017 FDA food code. Most states were still stuck in 2009 FDA food code. It had been a really long time. As you guys know, changing legislation, it's a big process. So they, in addition to updating the FDA food code, they took that opportunity to make license fees equivalent to what other states and, you know, the rising cost of certain things, staff, salaries, all of that, equate that into raising the license classes.
Okay,
and
but
the
as
fees.
you look at this, do we believe in Merrimack that we need to match these numbers the state's published in order to cover our expenses? Or are we costing more to do the inspections and the permits and things like that than we're getting in fees?
We have not really done a deep dive on that, to be honest with you. Erin can tell you what she does do to a food establishment. That would be something that we would have to look at. I know that the chief hasn't looked at that since he started, and I know I haven't looked at that since the chief started either. So, but Erin can tell you actually what she does. And some of these restaurants, she goes 2, 3, 4 times during the year, if not more.
Yeah, the list was long. You actually gave us that the last time we were together.
Which struck me that there is a lot of work that you put into it, and so it's quite likely that with all of the other fees going up, the expenses to the town is going up as well. And so we're just, by having these numbers, we're, along with everybody else, we're covering the expenses so that we're not contributing to the businesses by giving them a break, if you will, and asking, like we do in New Hampshire, people to pay for what they get. And if it's costing us more to do that, I think we need to keep that in mind as well. And we're not just raising them because we can, we're raising them because our expenses go up as well.
You said there are 14 communities that do their own food service stuff now?
15, yeah.
15.
Yep, we're one of 15.
The other states, do they keep the permit fees as well, the communities, or does the state get that fee because they're,
It depends state to state. I know
no,
Massachusetts,
I mean New Hampshire?
New Hampshire. So other than those 15 communities, all 15 communities in their town ordinance will say, like we are, you know, we're following the state fee structure, or they'll set their own, the Board of Health would set their own fee structure. The rest of the towns and cities in New Hampshire fall under the state food protection program, who has their fee structure.
And the state collects those revenues, or do those communities keep the revenues?
The state does.
Yeah,
Yep, but
So that's what it's boiling down to, is it's just to cover our costs associated with, and so we're kind of locked, I think we're kind of locked in to follow the town code right now. I would be interested if you know, the costs associated with doing the services that you perform for these restaurants and the different types of establishments, but we can't do that for tonight. So I guess we're back to the original question. What's the pleasure of the board?
I would move that we move forward with the suggested implementation of the new fees effective January 1 of 2023.
Second.
Motion by Tom Kane, a second by Nancy Murphy. Would you like to speak to your motion, Tom?
Yeah, I think I think we need to move forward with the program. We've already given them 2 years, if you will, or more of a break due to COVID, which was, I think, a very difficult time for restaurants. More difficult than today. I mean, at least now they have the potential for customers to come in, whereas 2 years ago they had no potential for customers to come in. I think it's appropriate that we continue to be looking out for the town's taxpayers having businesses pay their expenses, pay their costs to get the services that the town provides. And so I think it's appropriate to move forward at this time.
Any further discussion? No? Yeah, Andy?
Does this require a motion? I guess that's the part that I'm struggling.
Well, I'm trying to justify our delaying until January 1. The town council has an opportunity or a capability to override the town code with justification, I'm convinced. And we've already delayed it by 2 years. This just justifies us going to
Back to
January
the,
1.
okay, got it.
Okay, and I would be interested in seeing, when time permits, not, whenever.
We'll get,
It's not a
we'll
real
get on
critical
that.
thing, but I'd be interested.
We'll work on that.
Right. No other further discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. 5-1-0 with Barbara in the negative. Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thanks, Aaron. Next item
Thank
on
you,
the
Aaron. Thanks,
agenda
Chief.
is town council to be presented with the details of the 2023-2029 capital improvement program.
Got to keep one for myself. I can make this as quick or as long as the town council would like. As you know, the capital improvement program is very extensive. We have both minor and major projects. Our major projects are anything that will cost more than $100,000 and will be elevated to the planning board. So when we're talking to the planning board, they don't want to see a $650,000 fire truck go before them. But if it's a building or something related of a sidewalk or a road reconstruction, the planning board would like to see all of those. Our minor projects are anything over $10,000 up to any additional cost. Now, we break these out into several categories, and we have several capital reserve funds that the residents of Merrimack have funded over the years to help offset some of these. Help offset some of these, actually offset all these expenses, and we plug some of these projects in years that we will have money. So we've been saving up for these projects in the majors and in the minors over a number of years to help offset the cost and to pay for. The last 6 months, prices have really spiked. So what we were thinking that we were saving for over the last 4 or 5 years, the price has gone up. So you'll see a jump when I present overall capital reserve funding. You'll see a jump this year into the additional cost.
Tom?
Paul, has this been vetted by the planning board yet?
No, it has not. The planning board, we've used to go in front of the planning board first and then come to the town council as what is in the charter. Then the town council asked us to come before them before we go to the planning board to make sure that the projects that are in the plan are projects that the council can support and get behind. So we've done this a number of different ways in my 18 years. Some years we used to go to the planning board, and then all of a sudden the council asked finance, to come in front of them first before we go to the planning board. We're on schedule for the planning board in October.
And the reason I ask is because I want to count on the planning board's strong effort to look at these, to give me guidance on where we should go. And so if we spend 2 hours discussing this here, and then you spend 2 hours or more discussing it with the planning board, and then you come back to us at the end to see if everybody's really happy with the whole final works, and we're another hour into it or something. Maybe we have, and I'm just kind of recommending the half-hour presentation today that kind of goes over, and we just tell you if there's things that we really don't want or something like that. And then we can kind of count on the planning board review to go through the nitty gritty and come back before the council.
Yeah, I can
Is
do
that
that.
reasonable,
Yeah,
or-
I can do that with the majors. Go over them real quick. The planning board doesn't get involved with our minors, but yes, definitely with the majors. There's only 2 new projects on my major list. Everything else has already been talked about several times. Prices have been updated, so yeah, I can go over this real quick. Like I said, I can make this as short as you want or as long as you want.
Thank you.
So, so this is what I'm proposing for capital reserve funding. Roughly $2,250,000. That's an increase from 2023-24, from 2022-23 of $1,927,000. So a little bit more than about, I had the math in my head. I should have wrote it down. I'm sorry. Around $307,000 roughly, an increase.
Well, excuse me, Paul, what numbers are you talking about right now?
I'm talking
Total.
about the bottom line of total of, if you look at underneath milfoil, capital, you look underneath the milfoil, it says total property tax and finance. I
I was going to say.
I can't
can
get the
you-
mouse
you
to
can't.
come up and show you where I'm looking.
It's in the highlighted column,
Yeah.
Tom,
Yeah,
down.
I'm getting it, but it's hard for anybody else to follow at home or
yep,
to understand
Without
what's
that
going on.
person.
So yeah, it's the highlighted column. It's the third up. It's the one that's basically directly in the middle of the page. This presentation will be put on the finance website as well, for all those people tomorrow. But that's where I'm coming up with my numbers on the capital reserve deposits.
On,
I see the increase and I recognize what you're saying. Have you factored in inflation other than just kind of guessing at costs, or in other words, how did you come up with the 300 and some thousand?
Factored in inflation, as well. It's tried to keep it as close to neutral as possible, but also factoring in the cost of inflation with the projects. This year, we had all departments look at the projects and go out there with their latest estimates and put it in there, so.
Thank you.
So this slide might be a lot easier for people to look at. There's the differences between the 2 years. And it's roughly 12.94% increase in what I'm proposing for capital reserve funding in the CIP right now. These numbers change when the overall whole budget comes into play, but this is what we're proposing right now in a perfect world. And you'll see why some of these really have jumps, such as road infrastructure and Daniel Webster Highway. Those really have jumped, $100,000 each. The rest of them have been minor increases, but those 2 big ones. And the reason for Daniel Webster is because we're resurfacing the road, 2 sections of the road that we're looking at paving. And as you know, paving oil has gone up pretty high in paving cost. And then road infrastructure, one of the reasons why road infrastructure is going up is because we had the Route 3 bridge, and then we had the Wire Road project later on. Well, we just moved the Wire Road project forward 2 or 3 years. So while we were trying to save for that, now we really have to save for that project when we do the Route 3 bridge by Pinenberg and the Wire Road project. And that's why that jumped a little bit this year. This is very small, and I apologize to the people at home, but this is every major project that we have out there, from fire, public safety complexes, all the way down to athletic fields. What I would like to do is I'd like to break this out a little bit further for everybody. And here are our major projects that are going to be happening in the next 2 years. So the big ones are, we're looking at a safety complex. We've pushed this out. We're trying to find, we have a design, we're trying to find some land for this complex. We're going to get the firehouse location study at the end of this month and be in front of the council probably in the month of October with the fire location study. So that could help out where maybe we might want to look at placing the safety complex. With the safety complex as well, there are some South Fire Station renovations, and that's in next year's. We're looking at doing that next year. The big difference is that the building, the bond went up from 10 million to 15 million just because of the cost of materials when we, through what we did over at wastewater, when we were looking at, we came in at $7 million higher than what we were projecting before. So I raised that as well. Everything else is basically you've seen before. The bridge replacement on US Route 3, Babuzik Brook, that's the one to Piningburg. Stormwater improvements, we're increasing those a little bit. Retrofit MS4 drainage, we're going to start looking at, that's one of the new ones this year. We're going to start looking at planning for that MS4 presentation that we had last meeting. We're looking at planning on in 2 years for that. Then there's some, the other one is paving. Paving went from $1 million to $2 million. We are falling behind in our paving projects. That is what we're estimating that we will need, and that number is still a low estimate. There are a couple of things that we can look at when looking at the paving. As you know, that's a budgetary item, and I don't want to give away all my budget secrets, but we do have that money that we have been setting aside for 24, 25, 26 when the SAFER grant is no longer. So this would just help in that process. We used $700,000 for the 800 megahertz system this year upgrade with police and fire communications. That $700,000 will be able to be put into the paving next year potentially to help with those costs. What we've been trying to do with that to get the SAFER grant up so that we don't feel a tax impact when 8 firefighters come on board is to put it into non-reoccurring capital expenditures like the 800 megahertz system and the paving project. And that's what we're looking at there to increase the paving line item. Like I said, most of this stuff has been on there before. One of the new ones is the library is looking at their slate roof, and they're looking at using library trust funds. That moved way up. They're really looking at, they have to do some library maintenance on the elevator, and they moved that way up from before. And then the other one that we're really looking at, there's 2 bonds on there. There's the sewer line at McQuestion and Mayflower. That's in 24, 25. That's been moving up the schedule each year. As we get closer to the 24, 25 year, we'll definitely be having talks with the council and presentations with the council of what that really means. And that is based on a sewer line evaluation, a sewer line extension evaluation that was done a couple of years ago. And that was one of the areas in town that said that it's a need for sewer. The other thing is new athletic fields. It's a placeholder that's moving forward. We have an opportunity, hopefully, to get one field built in the next couple of years, but it's something that the council has had as a goal, and it's just keeping it in the forefront and moving it forward to 24, 25. And once again, that will also be talked about in the presentations of where we're looking and land we're looking at and things of that sort. So, and I do have slides for each one of these, but I will bypass going through every slide right now, unless you have a specific question on a project, on the majors. All right, I'll bypass the slides.
Can you at least touch on the new ones?
Okay. Actually, what I am going to do is I am going to bring Kyle up, since these are mostly Kyle's projects, and he has his backup out there, which is Dawn, who works on all these projects. But the first one we're going to talk about, because of the increase to the capital reserve fund, is the paving at Daniel Webster Highway.
Hi, Kyle.
Good evening, council. Thanks for having us tonight. So Daniel Webster Highway, we've paved that 3 mile stretch of road over a couple, 3 different projects. The northernmost section from Reed's Ferry Lumber north to Bedford Road was done as part of the Drainage Bond Fund and Sewer Extension Fund when the town did the big renovation project up there. The next section that was paved was from Greeley Street to the Southhegan River Bridge, and that was in 2011. And then in 2013, we paved the middle stretch from the Southhegan River Bridge to Reed's Ferry Lumber. So pavements typically last between 10 and 12 years, particularly on a main road like this. So the road is certainly due for a next treatment to keep the good roads good, which is the model we try to follow. So what we're proposing is in 2 different years, because of the staggered dates when it was last worked on, is to do what's called a bonded wearing course. And what that involves is it's a thin overlay. It's about 3/4 inch. It's an epoxy material with stone that really forms a rugged, thin surface. The reason the thin surface is attractive is it doesn't take away from the curb reveals where we do have curbings and sidewalks along that stretch, but it'll still perform durably like a full overlay. Costs are similar for both methods. If anyone wants to see what that looks like, the stretch of Daniel Webster Highway from Greeley Street south, the state did that same treatment to their section of the road about 4 years ago. And it's performing very well. So that's what we're proposing on Daniel Webster over the next few years.
Barbara?
So with the Everett Turnpike work expansion underway, and as they get closer to Merrimack and into Merrimack for our 3 exits, the bypass is Daniel Webster. So how is the timing of your work to repave DW coinciding with the ET work?
So the first project, which is next year, the southern part, will happen before any turnpike work happens. Right now, that's slated for 24 and 25 to start. The state is still figuring out how to let the projects. Everyone's seen the northernmost project is started, and they're supposed to start the southernmost, which is in Nashua, up to Pennachuck Brook, and replace those bridges there up to exit 10. And then the middle stretch was supposed to be let as one. We had a request from one of the DOT's consultants yesterday for some survey data on our sewer, and found out that they're actually going to do the stretch from exit 12 to 13 as a separate project now as well. So they're still breaking it up into pieces and trying to figure it out. So I don't know exactly when the turnpike work is going to happen. That said, we'll be able to do our work with or without it, whether the turnpike work is going on or not. One of the really nice parts about the bonded wearing course is it sets up quick. Because it's so thin, it's very durable very quickly, and it's kind of ideal for business district roads. So regardless when the turnpike work happens, we'll be fine to do our work.
Okay, good.
Is this something you would expect to do at night?
No.
No, you would do it during the
Yeah, we would do it during the day. We talked about that, each time we paved Daniel Webster, and there's a number of reasons I don't like to do paving work at night. One, it's more expensive. 2, you don't get as good a job. 3, it's not as safe. And for those reasons, I'm always an advocate of doing it during the day for our kind of road. If you're out on the turnpike, that makes sense because there's just so many cars, you just couldn't possibly do it during the day. But for us, it's a day or 2 out of 12 years. And, I think that's worth it to get the better product at the better cost and the safer environment for travelers and for the crews that are doing the work.
And I guess on Barbara's concern, if they do start the bridge replacements or any of those things, and they start cutting down to one lane or something like that, DW Highway is going to pick up extra traffic during the day. And it's already pretty bad during the rush hour. So if you can time your way in between the rush hours, maybe that's okay. But
And that's what we would do. I recall when we did the stretch from Greeley to Southhegan River, we don't start paving till 9, and we're done by 2:30. We give the contractor a shorter window of work, so we're not interfering with those peak hours.
Nancy?
Thank you. I just had a question about that overlay. It has the same longevity as the more conventional? It's not like a retread tire that's good until it all of a sudden isn't. It just
It does.
comes
It
off.
has a similar wearing life to the a normal inch and a half overlay.
Great, thank you.
Next one's the DW Highway crosswalk at Shaw's, which was a new project.
So this is a new project that the idea was brought to us through the Highway Safety Committee. A resident came and spoke to the committee about the difficulty of getting to Shaw's Plaza from the neighborhoods to the east of Daniel Webster Highway, Rainbow Ave, Maple, Elm, all of those streets. It's a project that certainly makes sense. There are no crosswalks in the immediate area. Shaw's is certainly a destination that residents would walk to. So we thought it was appropriate to get it into the CIP, see what the planning board and the town council thought about it. And if given the okay to go ahead with at least looking into alternatives as to where we would locate it. Would it be located right at the entrance to Shaw's? Would it be located at the north where the north of the Shaw's property is where the sidewalk actually goes into Shaw's Plaza? So there's a few different alternatives that we would want to look at as part of the project. And do you make it part of the signalized intersection that's at the that already exists at the Shaw's entrance in Rainbow Ave, or do you do they have you see them a lot in Nashua on Main Street, those rapid flashing beacons that allow pedestrians to cross at a non-signalized area. So a lot to consider, but that's the genesis of the project. And it certainly made sense from a safety and a mobility standpoint for residents.
Okay.
And I should add, the Highway Safety Committee was unanimously in support with moving forward with investigating the concept.
So is this listed as an investigation, or is it an installation?
It's an investigation. It's a project in the CIP, but it's not a project yet until it's funded, frankly. It's just a desire at this point.
And really what we were looking at in the CIP was to look at doing some more investigation work for $50,000. It wasn't the full project. It was to start looking at the project.
Yeah,
At
if you
that
look
point.
at the full 6 years of the CIP that Paul gave to the council, the 50,000 is in, I forget if it's year 1 or 2, but the construction cost was further out in that 6 years. So we could look at alternatives and see what the best
Two
project
years
would
after
be.
next year, yeah.
Okay.
Another new one is, as you heard, is the MS4 permit compliance retrofit drainage, and that's to install BMPs on existing town-owned facilities. So
Yeah, so I think Don talked to you guys a lot about this at your last meeting. There's a number of requirements in the MS4 program, one of which is to try and reduce impacts from town-owned properties on waters of the United States. So the EPA actually identified 16 town parcels that were the highest level of priority to look at. And they generated an estimate of $642,000 to retrofit those 16 parcels to improve water quality. What we're proposing to do is, in year 2 of the CIP, to hire a consultant to do an analysis of the properties and and first off, see what's required. If a property is not connected to the MS4, then I wouldn't propose to do anything because it's not required. Those that are connected to the MS4, we would look at what we can do both in-house with a contractor to improve the water quality. And that could be from reducing pavement widths in parking lots, taking stormwater off of buildings through gutters and now letting those into the groundwater rather than through to a conveyance that collects greases and oils and other contaminants in the road that makes what was a non-polluted discharge into a polluted discharge. So there's a whole bunch of things to look at, and we would propose to use a consultant service to do the initial analysis for us, and then later on in the program, we have the funding for the actual work on the projects. And the date for the work coincides with the requirement in the MS4 program.
And then the last new item is, if I can get there, right there, our fuel tanks at the highway garage. When we looked at doing the new highway garage facility, we always looked at the fuel pumps. We did purchase a couple of new fuel pumps with that bond on the highway garage. We left the infrastructure in place and the tanks in place. Kyle can talk more about it. The tanks have been installed since 1997, so they're about 25 years old now. Definitely nearing their end of useful life. We've had some issues with the piping and the electric connections going from the pumps into our buildings, where we had to tear some of the piping up, and they couldn't pull new wire through, so we had to lay a new piece of conduit, and that cost some money. There are several options that we'll be looking at over the course of the next couple of months. And once again, I don't want to give away all my budget secrets. So just give it as a teaser, but there are stuff that we are looking at. And there's some discussions that we need to have, meaning Kyle, myself, and Gloria Barrett, the operations manager, as well as other departments, about do we need a pumps with the tanks and our own gas, or can we go with the state, which has a couple of fueling depots in very close proximity to the town of Merrimack? So those are conversations we need to have, but we wanted to put this on the CIP because it's definitely going to be coming forward, and we have it in there for $1.4 million, and Kyle can actually explain how we came up with that estimate.
Yeah, so the estimate was largely derived from actual projects that DOT has done in the last couple of years. DOT manages fuel stations all over the state that state police, their DOT folks, and other state agencies utilize. As Paul said, we have a couple pretty local to us. We have the one down on Daniel Webster Highway next to Colesman. There's one in Bedford at the District 5 facility. What's that?
By U-Haul.
Yes. There's one in Nashua by the Exit 5 interchange. So they're around and they're available. So that's one option we could do. The emphasis for the project, as Paul said, our tanks, although they're double wall tanks and good quality tanks, they are 25 years old. They're not going to last forever. We know that their useful life is coming to an end. But last year, Lori was notified by DES that the piping that we have in our system, which was a typical installation, has been failing in a number of locations throughout the state. And if or when that fails, then you really do need to upgrade the whole system anyway. It wouldn't be worth just going in and doing that little part of it. So both the lifespan of the tanks and this known issue with the piping to the tanks is prompting us to put this as a project in the first year of the CIP.
But it's brand new, so we haven't been saving for this at all. We're talking about taking it out of the budget.
Yeah, it's yeah.
There's no capital reserve fund for this project.
Yeah, I believe it's a hard pill. It's a hard pill to swallow. Like I said, I won't give away all my secrets, but I'm working on a scenario where we'll try to get most of it paid.
Very good.
And just because you haven't talked about it, the Natticook Road Triangle, I know it's out there in the years for doing it, but it's listed in here as new, so.
Kyle, you want to just?
Sure.
I don't have that on my
Okay.
slides here. It's in the back. I can get to it.
That's okay. So Natticook Road, where it meets Natticook Road and Camp Sargent Road at the Triangle, near the south end of town. It's kind of a known trouble spot. There's been a few accidents over the last years. We've had a number of conversations with neighbors in the area, and there's been a strong desire to improve that intersection. Through the years, the department's been upgrading kind of an intersection at a time, the intersections that had safety issues, whether it's Joppa Road, Patton Road. We just did Turkey Hill and Babusick last year. This is kind of the next one on the list after Wire Road. And what we would do is investigate how to make this intersection safer. It is confusing for drivers. It's a triangle, not a circle. Drivers, particularly ones that aren't familiar with the area, get to the triangle. I think particularly if you come from the Camp Sargent leg, it can be confusing which direction you're supposed to go to get to where you need to. So we would look at realigning the road. At the same time, we would replace the existing drainage that's there. We just had an emergency drainage repair on Natticook Road, just up the road from here, a couple months ago. And another one further up that road, probably 10 years ago. And this is the same age drainage system. It's metal pipe. We know it's going to fail at some point. And we've always had the two projects in mind that we would do together. It's a really complicated project in terms of executing how you handle the land. The town does not own the land inside the triangle. It's owned by two different owners. And so how to acquire that is one question. We had discussed previously with the town council a concept that one of the abutters was certainly in favor of, where we do some sort of land swap, where we get the triangle, they would get the land that was discontinued from the third leg of the triangle. But it's a complicated process because you're talking planning board action to do lot line changes. You have council action, discontinuing roads, and to figure out the path to make that all happen will be a challenge. But that'll be the fun of the project, I guess.
And for those at home, that project is slated for 2028-29. So it's not like happening.
It's been on
tomorrow.
it's
It's
been
been
on
there
people's
for a while.
thoughts for a long time.
It has
Yeah.
been.
And I guess I never have gotten a clear explanation of why what alignment is chosen. And it looks like you have a concept alignment here. I don't know that that's we believe that's exactly what we're going to do, or we're just literally concepting it.
It's just
Because
a concept at this
in my
point.
mind, Natticook ought to be the through road, not Thornton's Ferry, because I think that's where most of the traffic goes. But I could be wrong, and so the question is, have we done any studies to understand where most of the traffic goes, and should Natticook do a 90-degree turn or not?
Or we have another roundabout.
It is a possibility. We haven't done the analysis.
Don't have the land
We do. A roundabout would actually fit there if we
if you
acquired
acquire all the
the
land.
center. Yeah, a roundabout would fit in quite nice, frankly. But we haven't done any of that analysis. You're exactly right, Tom, that what we have is a concept, nothing more.
Okay. The more often I see it in print, the more concerned I am, because I'd prefer to see Natticook go through personally, but that's the way I end up driving.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, the Highway Safety Committee has been very busy this year because this was on our docket as well.
Correct.
And I learned that there were two owners of that. I don't know that I knew that before, but one of them is the Courier family.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the other, the landowner who brought the project to the Highway Safety Committee. And I think, if I heard him correctly, I could have not heard him correctly, but I think he said that he was willing to give it up because he really wanted the intersection fixed because it's been a difficult thing. But
Yeah, for him, he's really interested. His driveway right now is very short and very steep down to his house because he's on the lakeside. If and he ends up parking his car in the triangle. Should the project go as the concept states and a land swap occurs, then he would be able to have a longer driveway on his side of the road, which would certainly be more convenient for him. And that's how the original concept came about, was actually discussions that I had with the previous owner. And then when the current owner bought the previous owner passed it on to the current owner, and talks were initiated again.
all right.
So that is basically all the new and discussion of the new items that are in the majors that will be going in front of the planning board in the month of October. And then once we get their recommendations, we can definitely come back to the town council on that. I just want to throw this slide up real quick, and this is funding sources of and how we were planning on paying for a lot of these things. Capital reserve funds, of course, what we've been saving for. There's some money, as you see in 2023-24, there's a lot of money there for funded through the budget, but that includes the $2 million of paving, that includes the $1.4 million of gas station, for lack of a better term, gas pump renovation, and also within the bond of the fire safety complex, there's some money that would be funded through the budget because of the way we would have to fund some things, which we haven't had the discussion yet, but we'd have to fund some things if it goes forward. If we don't have the land in the next month or so, or some idea where we're going to put this project, the safety complex probably will get pushed out another year, because there's nothing worse than trying to rush a big bond project through the taxpayer group and not have all our answers and all our ducks in a row. But so that's why some of these things look, and it's fluid. It's a fluid plan. Just because it's in the capital plan now, this is our capital plan that we're looking to proceed with. But as we come down, and as you know, with budget influences, some of these projects get pushed a year here or pushed a year there, or moved up because but there's money in the budget for them versus other projects that will take several more years to hold. So I just wanted to throw this slide up real quick for everybody. The minor expenses, which do not go to the planning board, what I did is I just want to show you the next 2 years, because really that's what we're talking about, year one, year two stuff. The assessing Ford Focus, and I'll just hit some of the highlight ones. The assessing Ford Focus is a vehicle that the assessors use to travel to town. Granted, it doesn't have a lot of miles, but it's almost 20. It was bought the same time we bought the Focus. We bought two Focuses. We bought one for wastewater and one for the assessing department. The one for wastewater has failed inspection, and we have to replace that one, as you heard at last meeting. This one is getting long in the tooth as well. Repairs are starting to add up. We probably can get a different kind of car. I have $27,000 estimate. We'll be looking at a variety of cars, even going with, I know Kyle doesn't want to hear this, but maybe even an electric car, so to speak, which means we'll have to put an electric charging station in, but something of that sort. So we'd have to we're looking at everything, all the possibilities of going green, as well as buying another vehicle. So that will come forward in the budget process. The big one that I want to talk to on this page is the sprinkler system at Town Hall. Kyle's sitting next to me. We've had a number of incidences where we have a dry system, which means we have air in it. But once you get an air leak, the compressors kick on, push the air through. If we have a leak, the compressors can't keep up, water will backfill. So we're running around with the fire department shutting off valves so that we don't get that, because we do not want a discharge of water and having a huge mess on our hands. But we have to start replacing some of these pipes that were put in, in the 1980s. We're starting to have more and more holes. And if you would like more information, Kyle's here and he can talk to you about that.
Those big steel pipes that you can see traveling the ceilings in some places,
Yeah, those are the ones.
those are failing. It's not just the clamps that hold them together. It's
Correct.
actual.
Yeah, we've got, if you look in the ceilings, behind the ceiling tiles throughout both buildings, you'll see a lot of clamps. You'll see some rubber gaskets with clamps holding them closed. We've done a lot of pipe replacement, little pieces replacement over the past 5-6 years. We had a very close call this year in assessing. There was a fairly large pinhole above all of their files in their back room. Fortunately, the system alarmed. The fire department called me, and they got there and I got there, and we were able to shut the system down before it energized. Had it filled with water, their files would have been at least damaged, if not ruined. So that was quite a close call. And it seems more frequently we get these kind of incidents. Kind of the running joke at home is when my phone rings on a holiday, it's the fire department calling because of the sprinkler system.
Either that or Paul's calling me to get here because the sprinkler system went
Right.
off.
Luckily, the way the system runs is we do have alarms on it. So when the down in the basement, when the air pressure in the piping system gets to a certain point, it alarms low air, and that triggers the call to the fire department. So we generally have time to get here to first off make sure it's not a fire, but then to turn off the water to the system so that we can then find the leak, repair the leak, so the system doesn't energize. But if we get a leak big enough and the air escapes fast enough, we won't have that time to get here, and that's when we could have quite an emergency.
Okay.
Then we have a paving of the, really that's the church lot across the street. That part of the agreement, the winter rental agreement, is that it's a 70-30 split. And the lot needs to be repaved. We've repaved John O'Leary. We repaved a couple things. We're looking at repaving that lot because of what's there. So that's in there. The next one I want to bring to your attention is the body cameras, and I'd like to call the police chief up here if you have questions about the body cameras, and we have that in the budget for current year of $100,000 and then $285,000 in year one. But the police chief can talk much more intelligent about the body cameras and what he's looking at than I could right now.
I'm sure they already know what they are. That's pretty prevalent nowadays, right? As you're aware, the Governor Sununu formed the New Hampshire Commission on Law Enforcement Accountability, Community, and Transparency. It's called the Lee Act, and they recommended several recommendations. And one of the recommendations was that all police departments deploy body cameras and cruiser cams. Like I said, we really have zero formal complaints on police officers here, but I think based on the narrative and all the communities around us having and the what if factor, if something tragic does happen here, that we can protect our officers.
So it's vehicles as well as body cams?
Correct.
Because I thought
Correct. And
first conversation I heard of it was just body cams.
And just so you're aware, this is a 5-year subscription. That's the way most of these systems are. So it's a subscription-based plan where every 5 years it's going to cost us.
Okay, we'll
and-
come back to that, but Barbara had a question first.
So does each officer have their own individual body cam that they keep, or do they turn them in at the end of shift and it goes to someone else?
Nope, it would be every officer would have one, top down, from starting with me, deputy chief, captains, everyone.
And the reason why you're individualizing them and not keeping them in shift is because of
Battery charging. and
battery
stuff.
Battery
charge.
charge, better care.
I think you're here, Paul.
You know, they're here. They're doing various things. They might be on detail. They might be someplace else. So that's why similar to our tasers. Remember, we used to swap tasers in and out, and we found it just much more effective for everyone to have their own taser. It's like another issue piece of equipment.
You know, I know a lot of people see the TV shows and the police take it off and next guy comes and grabs it. That's why I wanted him to explain why each one. I wanted the chief to explain why each gentleman and lady in the police department would need their own body camera, and why we're not sharing is because of things that, like the chief said. So
May I have one more?
Yep.
Does the canine get one too?
No,
Not
No.
Mac.
nope. The canine handler would.
I'd like to talk about the subscription. I don't know.
So a lot of
What's
these plans are subscription based, where they house the data, because ideally the product that we wanted somewhere cloud based that we can have access to, but we can't alter it, right? So that's keeping the transparency there. So it's subscription based for mostly data retention, but with that too, there's several back end products that you need to have with the PD, to make sure the data gets dumped at the appropriate times when they come to the station and such like that. So like I said, there's been a plethora of new products out there, and once we start moving forward with this, we'll definitely give everything a look. But most of them are subscription based right now.
And what is the cost of that subscription for the 5 years or what?
So last estimate was about almost $400,000. It was
$400,000.
$385,000 for 45.
$400,000 a year,
Yeah, about that, a little bit less
a little less, yeah, 80,000.
per year. No, dear Lord, no. So it'd be 45 patrol officer cameras, and then 11 cruiser cams.
I don't think Lon heard the number.
45 officers, and then
Yeah,
11 cruiser
I meant the
cams.
gross number, the
Oh,
thousands at the end.
385,000 for a 5-year subscription.
For all the cameras.
All the cameras.
And that includes
the-
backup data retention and.
Yes,
and all that.
cloud-based, basically all storage, any device that would need to allow for the storage to get there. Basically, so it's basically managed by this company, whichever company you choose. So like I said, just for the transparency, that's so we can alter videos, we can review videos, we can pull videos. But yeah, that's it.
No, that's
And
a
I-
good
I-
idea.
I-
I'm just shocked at the price. That's all.
I was too.
Yeah.
Sure. But I think as similar with our RMS system, if you remember, a lot of those programs now are subscription based. That's why we found benefit in this one where we actually purchased it.
Yep.
And talking to, just for the public, talking to several neighboring communities, a lot of times if there is a complaint on a police officer, they'll just go right to the video, and most of them are unfounded once they review the video. It's basically because someone didn't report the truth, or whoever came in to make the complaint wasn't be completely forward and truthful. So they'll just go right to the video and say, yeah, there's unfounded here. But once again, I want to be sure residents here, we rarely ever have any formal complaints on police officers.
Which is a good thing.
I'm very proud of all officers.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, anything further for the chief?
one last thing while he's here, give a nickel tour of where we stand with the 800 megahertz system.
Right now, we're still dealing with the site approval for where we're going to put the tower. There's some more information that I need to discuss with the town manager, but we're hoping to put it up by Whitetail. Verizon's been gracious enough to allow us to use their facility up there on Whitetail, which is off Wilson Hill Road. Motorola has done studies with that, and that is the premier location to have complete coverage around town. As far as the grant process, we are continuing on. I'm not sure if the town manager's spoken to you about our grant process that we received for the congressional direct spending. It's been very long and lots of paperwork. So it wasn't, when they said that we got it, we still had to go through a lot of hoops to jump through. So we inquired last week, and apparently it's moving on to the technology department for the grants. So everything looks good right now. So hopefully we'll get an announcement soon that we're all done and we can receive that money.
Very good. Yes. That's a good reason to.
Okay,
All right.
moving on. That's
Chief.
the communications division, big purchases. I'd like to call the fire chief, Chief Stefanzo, up because there are a couple things on here. As you know, a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, we came forward and put a plan together for the fire department for their capital reserve funds and things of that sort. We are following that plan, as you can see, in 24, 25. Looks like we're going to replace one of our engines, another engine, a pumper, for $650,000. We have an ambulance next year for 225. But the big change is that the chief came to me and in an effort to look at replacing a very old forestry pickup 2, which is scheduled for 23-24. The chief has made some modifications, which I think will he can explain in further detail.
Good evening, Chief.
Evening. Yeah, so what we're trying to do here is the current utility truck that sits at Station 2 is a 1988. The engine's been replaced, I think, as far as I know, a number of years ago, and the transmission's been worked on over its life cycle. So recently, over the last couple of months, it has started to smoke when we use it. So we brought it down to DPW, and again, they've done a great job at keeping it going and making it work, but the time has come to replace that truck. Now, that truck we use to pull trailers and keep that lot open during the winter season so it has a plow on it. So we're looking to replace that 1988 pickup truck. In the future, as we move forward, the current utility truck that sits at Station 1, we'd like to turn that into a brush truck, repurpose it, because right now we don't have a brush truck out of Station 2. You might recall that there used to be an older truck we got from the state that we turned back in because of, again, it was so old, it was not useful for us anymore. So we're down to one pickup truck type brush unit, which I think we really need to have 2, given the land that we have. Knock on wood, we haven't had a lot of activity. That doesn't mean we're not going to see any activity, so we're not really prepared as I think we should be. So that's the concept going forward. So the first step would be to replace the 1988 pickup truck, and then in the next year or 2 is to convert utility 1 into a brush unit, and then figure out what to do from there. So that's the concept.
And those are the 2 changes that were made to the plan. As you can see, there's a fire command vehicle, and line 36 is the utility truck 2 with a plow for $76,000. And that's where he was talking about that. And then line 26 is the forestry pickup truck. And we do some swapping of bodies and things of that sort to make that a forestry pickup truck, forestry out and for forestry too. Which is, when everything is said and done, I think forestry was in the CIP for 150 or so thousand. With the 50,000 and replacing utility trucks, it comes out to about $140,000. So there's a little bit of savings by swapping some of the current vehicles we have out as the forestry trucks.
How old's the command vehicle?
Well, the command vehicle that I currently operate is a 2011. However, we're going to look to try to keep that car in the fleet. We have other admin cars that are in way worse condition than what I'm using. So we're going to evaluate all of our admin vehicles and remove the most unsafest vehicle out of the fleet. So that's the goal of the project. So.
Okay. Thanks. Anybody have anything further? Thanks, Chief.
And thank you, Chief. So the next set is highway. Once again, we're looking at trying to, get some 1-ton dump trucks, 3/4 dump trucks, some 6-wheel dump trucks, a sidewalk, MV sidewalk tractor we're looking to replace next year. There's one is a catch basin cleaner H19 to replace a vacuum truck that they had in year 24-25 for $400,000. And either Kyle or Lori are more than welcome to explain why that is such a needed piece of equipment. Kyle again.
Hello again.
Hey,
So the catch basin cleaner truck,
That's line 48. I'm sorry, line 48.
so every year, as part of our MS4 program and just part of maintaining our drainage infrastructure, we need to clean the sand and other debris that falls into our catch basins. The machine we currently use is a clamshell machine. So it's on a crane. They lower it in close the shell, bring it up, dump the stuff into the truck. That's the model we've used since I've been here. Our truck is now, I think that was a 2007 truck, if I recall. And it's both the truck and the crane are not going to be able to be kept in service very long. So we're looking forward to what our future needs are, and we have over 5,000 catch basins in town. Certainly, the requirements of the MS4 have increased since we bought that truck. The frequency of cleaning is more often, and to be able to get to enough catch basins that meets our program, we need to be more efficient. One way to do that is through a Vector machine, which is similar to the one that you guys saw the presentation from Sarita on that wastewater just bought. We would buy a smaller version of it because we wouldn't need to pump out tanks, 1,000-gallon tanks that the wastewater folks do. So it would be a smaller version, slightly cheaper than that one, but it would be far more efficient than the clamshell. Additionally, it would give us the option to have a jetting component when we're trying to free obstructions in drainage pipes and other things that we have to call over to wastewater and hope that their truck's not being used. It would certainly give us a lot more freedom for our drainage folks at highway to do the job they need to. And so we think that that's the best way to move forward when it comes time to replace the clamshell truck.
And that vacuum truck's going to take care of leaves and sticks and rocks and debris of that sort without problems, or?
We don't get a lot of that in the catch basins because the grates are so small. So what gets into the grates, yeah, the Vector can take care of.
Okay. You know, I don't. I mean, the grates look pretty big in front of my house, but. Okay.
Do we clean all 5,000 catch basins every year?
It takes us we're on about a 3-year cycle, and we should be on a 2-year cycle. Yeah, we have, we dedicate one employee most of the year to this operation. Obviously, the winter months, we can't do it, but outside of that, short of other emergencies, Lori has someone assigned to that job every day.
Does do you need the crane to lift that grate off as well, or does that come up?
No,
without-
that's done by hand.
Okay.
Yeah. And we have tools that we can use to help with that too.
All right. Everybody else set?
Kyle, you just want to explain the sidewalk tractor for $155,000?
Sure. So we have 2 sidewalk machines. We have the trackless machine and the MV machine. You've probably seen them out around town. The trackless is the yellow one. The MV one is the red one. In the winter months, those are both used for sidewalks. The highway crew, once they're done plowing roads and getting those in good shape, Lori assigns 2 employees to go out and start treating the 13 plus miles of sidewalks that we have. Actually, it's way more than that. I don't know why I said 13. I think 13 is priority 1 sidewalks. Yeah. In the off season, in the non-winter season, we use those tractors for a whole variety of things. We use them for roadside mowing. We have boom flails that we do the more aggressive roadside mowing. You can think of it like a dinosaur machine, just getting the brush down. We use them to mow the transfer station, and we use them for street sweeping. We put the attachments on it to do that grinding program with the pavement that we've been doing the last couple of years. So they're very versatile and useful pieces of equipment. And this one is just, it's due. The crew has been putting a lot more maintenance effort into it to keep it running. And it's just time to be replaced with a new machine.
Is that the cost for the machine and all the attachments and stuff, or are we able to
If,
reuse?
if we can find a new machine that utilizes the existing attachments, we always go for that route. Sometimes they'll change machines so that they can't,
Can't use the old ones, yeah.
right? And I think that's intentional. But we do try and reutilize attachments whenever we can.
Right.
Okay. Moving on, Parks and Rec, Matt Kasparius, excuse me, is at a training seminar, or else he would be here tonight. But he said if you have to cut everything, it's okay,
But he didn't read it.
because he isn't here. Told me he needed to be here. So, really, Matt has a couple of things on the, besides the major, which was the athletic field. He's looking at some parking lot improvements for about $230,000 worth of paving. There is not a capital reserve fund for Wasserman Park. The road is starting to deteriorate with the washouts and things we've had. So he's looking to kind of repave it and to go from there. If we can do it all in 1 year, great. If we can't, we'll be looking at doing it over a number of years and trying to get some of the sections done that are in the worst condition. But that he's estimating, with Kyle's help, $230,000. The other thing is irrigation at the football field at Wasserman Park. We have that 24-25. There's still a lot more discussion that needs to be had on that. It's just on there to do. MYA has been pushing that forward for that field. I personally think that the 62,000 for irrigation will also be a lot higher because we'd have to do some field reconstruction
Because of
over
ledge.
there because of ledge. So I don't know how much topsoil there is and things of that sort. Doesn't make sense putting in irrigation if you can't grow grass, just the water dirt, so to speak. But that's something that we would have to look at as well when we look, if this project moves forward. Those are basically the two major items. He has, and then, sorry, I skipped over one. Not at Parks and Rec, but library. They have a new phone system in 24-25 for about $7,500 that they're looking to do. But those are really the major items between library and Parks and Rec right now.
75,000 for a phone system?
Yep, and a vet is in the back, and she'd be more than happy. A vet's in the back, and she'd be more than happy. Usually, I don't have a problem speaking, but a vet's in the back, and she can answer on how that number came forward.
So we replaced the phone system here in Town Hall not that long ago, right?
Correct.
And it was,
Over $200,000.
oh, really?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We also went with a totally different phone system than what we had. We just didn't replace the server. Everything got replaced, including the telephones. It was the servers, the telephones. So we had a big expense because of the phones. We had to buy a lot of phones.
Right.
And we integrated all our facilities on the phone system,
Except for the library.
except for the library, which is technically a separate operation from the town.
What are they talking about, integrating in with the new system, or
That's
maybe,
why
maybe Yvette could come
If
forward?
that can come
and tell us what
forward.
they're
I'm
planning?
waiting for her to
Yeah.
come forward.
She thought she got
She's-
out of it, actually.
She's trying to look up at the ceiling.
I heard somebody run out the door.
I bet.
And I'm remiss that Jennifer is also here from the library trustees.
But- So whoever.
Oh, it's not Jennifer.
It's Deb.
Deb, sorry. Deb, sorry.
Hello.
Hi, Yvette.
So the phone replacement, that number is a placeholder. That's not a project that I've been able to research very deeply because we're putting priorities on the elevator and the roof, sprinklers, some other things. But I'm happy to talk to you about what you all did at Town Hall.
We're more than happy to talk to you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
we
glad
can.
we got you two together. to-
He's a busy guy.
It would be nice if, I'm sure it could be divvied out in some fashion to maintain separation of budgets, but
No,
I would imagine it'd be cheaper to hook in with the town system and just buy phones.
right. If our system can handle it.
Maybe they could use the existing phone system.
I don't know yet. I mean, yeah. I'll talk to him.
We'll have to check it out. and
Okay,
see
so
how-
it's
no, absolutely.
at the moment, it's a placeholder, but it's only 2 years out, so you gotta make a decision soon.
Yeah,
There's a need though to do it now as opposed to 3 years from now, or?
my vendor said we have to do it soon, and then, haven't
If I was
been
selling
able.
something, that's what I would say too.
Do I have a sign on my forehead that says go?
No.
Are you sure? Yeah, I have to get back with our vendor because it was urgent and then I've been ghosted,
Oh,
which is what the kids say.
yes, no, I understand
Okay,
terminology finally.
I'm trying to, okay. So, but I'll talk to you
Yes.
because I think we have the same vendor. We'll talk.
Barbara had a question.
So why do you need a new phone system anyways?
I believe it's the the parts aren't able to be replaced and different parts of the system, it's different parts of the system don't they can't be replaced or maintained anymore. I mean, we haven't had any problems with the phone system. It seems to be working fine, but this is what the vendor said. So, gonna look into it, find out what is the actual problem and what's the estimated lifespan on this stuff, on the hardware. So, put it on the list.
Figure it out, sure. That'd be good to know.
Yeah.
All right. Anything further in the library? Well, thanks
I
for
also
that.
have my trustee chair and the treasurer here if you wanted to ask questions of them too.
Good. I think,
Oh, that-
unless Tom has anything,
No,
I think we're good for tonight. I guess the big night will be after the planning board now that Tom had suggested that. But that'll be an easy night too, I'm sure.
Budget.
But so I think we're good.
Okay.
Continuing on.
Thanks for
So-
that.
Thank you.
thank you, Vet.
And we'll be in touch. Solid waste. Solid waste, we're looking at a loader in 24-25, pickup truck this year. The big item is the office trailer. The office trailer, if you remember last budget season, we brought that forward. And it was basically, we patched it. It needs to be replaced. Definitely a lot of repairs need to be done on it. The floor is separating from the sidewalls due to salt hitting it and things of that sort. So the support members are rusting and corroding. So that will be something that will be coming forward in the budget and looking at some potential of looking at replacing that office, the trailer that sits at the beginning, where the scale is, or doing some significant repairs to it. Then we go into technology, and it's nice. I want to just, and this is not any way, shape, or form with the prior technology coordinator, but the new technology coordinator is really looking at things in a different light, and looking to try to get us up and running and disaster recoveries and things of that sort. So one thing he looked at is where can we have, if something happens in town hall catastrophically, what is the best building to put a backup system in? We looked at the fire station. He looked at the police station. He looked at the new highway garage. When we built the new highway garage, we built an IT room over there. The only thing that's missing in that IT room is a fiber link to town hall. So we looked at fiber link. How can we get a fiber link from town hall to the highway garage? And basically we can buy one and put it in ourselves and then we own it. Or we can rent one for a few years to see how it works and if we really need one. And in year 4 or 5, if we really need one, then buy it ourselves when fiber hopefully comes down in price. But to first year cost is $24,000 to run the fiber link from town hall to highway garage. And then it goes down to $16,000 for the next 3 years, $16,700. The reason why it's at $23,000, and these are rough estimates, I'm sure we can work on getting these numbers down as well. But the reason why it's at $23,000 is that there's some front end cost that is associated with it that we have to pay from the vendor. And like I said, these were just, hey, if we ran it from here, we didn't go out and get several bids. We would be looking into that a little further as budget time progresses in the next couple of months, and that's what he's been working on.
And this is the rent for the first few years?
That would be, yes, 23, it would be roughly the rent of the line, two-way with them overseeing it. If there's any problems, they come out and fix it right away, is $16,000, $16,700.
So
And
it's just kind of cute that the budget number ends in $437, not 425 or 450. It's pretty accurate for a,
Well, that's the quote that he received from the vendor, and he put it in as the quote he received from the vendor. There's a lot of options out there. This is one option. There's an option called dark fiber that we can look at as well, but we got to see if dark fiber is okay with, if we do use that as our disaster recovery and this goes down, are we okay with dark fiber to go out to our other buildings and things of that sort? So there's a lot of things we have to look at that might be cheaper options, but might not be beneficial or helpful to the town if we do have a disaster recovery that was needed with moving our server room to a different location.
so you'll know more by budget season
Yes,
what that's going to be.
yes.
Barbara?
Yeah, I think along with that, for planning purposes, I'd like to know what the cost would be to run the wire ourselves,
$75,000.
okay? Compared to what you've got here for renting the system.
Right.
And also, what else would be needed at that particular location? I mean, do they have the rack space? Do they
Yes.
need more racks?
Nope.
Is it fully a backup system operationally, or is it just memory?
What would be needed there is probably maybe a rack with a couple of ports just to put servers in if we need them. But they do have the room there. They do have the power there. There's no construction costs. It's just rolling the stuff in and getting the fiber into the building.
We have backup generators there already.
Yes, we do. We have a backup generator there.
All right,
So,
the detail we can get in a couple months.
and Jonathan will be here to give you the
Yeah.
details.
All right.
And the last thing is Microsoft 360. This year was $46,000. It was a change. We were going to take it out of the capital reserve fund. However, we feel that when we do roll over to that, that becomes an operating expense. It's not a capital reserve fund expense
Right,
going
right.
forward. It's just an operating expense. And we're still looking into that, how we want to roll it out, how many email accounts, how many email plus all the office stuff. So we're in the process of working through that, and hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll definitely have an idea of where we're going with it. But like I said, the technology coordinator now is looking at the whole system and not just band-aiding it to get us through the next couple of years. He's really looking like storage, and we spent a lot of money just this year on upgrading our email security, going from a VAST to this new system we have, because it's more beneficial and actually serves our need better. So he's been looking at a lot of these things as well. So, and that's it for general fund. We also have wastewater fund, and there's some, skid steers that are needed, a loader that's needed, nothing that, a genie lift for 55 feet, a scissor lift that goes 26 feet. Sarita's here. She can explain all this stuff if there's any questions on the wastewater. But next year, really, it's just a loader to replace our third cat loader that we had. We replaced two with the two used John Deere loaders a couple years ago. This is the third loader. that needs to be replaced down there. And then, as I said, the Ford Focus, failed inspection. So we need to replace that next year.
I guess I'm pretty much all set, but I'm just, as you just said, that hand-me-downs don't work? Or are they just so bad that,
The vehicles that we get off the line from police and fire, by the time fire gives them up, they're basically pushed to auction. The police ones, the better ones, we try to get out there and give to people who need them. Today, I just signed over police with 2 interceptors that came off the line. One of them is going downstairs as a pool car for IT, and the other one is going for a pool car for DPW. So we are trying to reuse as many of those vehicles from police as possible. Usually the way they get into the town is through the police department, and then from the police department, if fire has a need, they get some of the Explorers to fire, and then if fire doesn't have a need, they get rolled out to the rest of the areas.
Okay.
And when they come over, even though they have 100,000 miles and they're only 3 years old, they're pretty beat. You know, they're pretty beat, but they're usable, and we do use them until when we're getting rid of them, we're pushing them to auction. It's the cost of fixing them are more than anything, and we're looking for another hand-me-down someplace else. So,
I remember getting the Focuses.
long time ago, 2011, 10 years ago, 10,
I
11,
thought it was more than
9,
that.
7, 9 or 7, 9, 2009. We got 2 in 2009, so
Yeah.
they're a little bit old. And then Nicholas is just, looking for a remote studio upgrade, mobile studio, and then miscellaneous cable TV equipment. Nicholas is $55,000 for equipment. That's what he budgets every year in the media fund, and he sticks to that and tries to get what he can for $55,000 with the needs.
Excellent.
Sorry, it's a little more than a half hour, Tom.
Well,
But,
we kept asking questions, so that's okay.
And in general, we're looking at spending about $1.2 million next year out of capital reserve funds, around 851 out of the budget. And that's all I have.
Does anybody have any questions or further comments, thoughts?
Well,
No.
it's a lot of money.
Very good.
Yeah, it is a lot of money, and we do look at it, and I know the departments would love to get everything tomorrow, but we try to push it out as far as we can with these vehicles. And we didn't talk about it, but we have the ladder truck on order, the new ladder truck. Well, my ladder truck, Bedford called us today to ask for our ladder truck. Well, our ladder truck now is sitting in our highway garage in equipment maintenance being repaired for brakes. So the trucks are getting, like I said, we use them as much as possible and pushing them down, when we get rid of them, they're being rolled to auction or pulled to auction or towed to auction. They're not being driven like a brand new sports car up there.
Yep, very good.
And clearly your challenge is gonna be the budget numbers you put in the capital reserve projects there. I mean, you've got $6 or $7 million listed for next year when you
Yes.
add the minors in there, so.
Yeah, and there is. I'm looking at. Yeah, I don't want to give
I
away
mean,
my
it's our
secrets
problem
away.
as well, but
Right,
we're
but-
hoping you'll straighten it all out.
Yeah, by the time it comes down, I'm hoping that it's around the 5% increase because we're dropping a bond.
Right.
As well,
Yep, very good.
we're dropping a bond payment as well. So
That'll be
with
helpful.
the addition of the capital reserve and dropping that bond payment,
Bond and not bomb.
bond, BOND.
I want to thank everybody for being here. Sorry it went as long as it did, but we appreciate your time. And I think we're all set.
Great, thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
You can hear them running.
I was trying to think, as it was going along, I was trying to think if anybody could leave, but I'm going, I better not, because all of a sudden we'll need them, whatever. But next item on the agenda is
Thank you,
going to
Bob.
receive our update on the MS 434. from Paul.
From somebody.
I'm
Yes, sir.
going to defer to the
Thomas?
finance director, Tom Boland.
Your name was on it. That's the
Yeah,
only
well,
reason I even said
Becky
it.
puts my name on everything. Well, I'll defer, but of course I have to say something. We're coming before you for the 434 really to get a council vote on the amount of capital
To be used.
fund balance to be used. In the budget, we had $1.3 million worth of fund balance to be used. We're coming before the council. We'll do a little presentation here for you. But we're coming before is the 434 is what amount of fund balance
To use to offset
to
taxes.
use off to set the taxes.
Tom?
Just turned it all off. That's funny. You got to get a mouse.
Yeah.
Mouse.
Okay, so, as Paul said,
My
Yeah,
mic
if you
on?
could pull that closer,
Okay,
thanks.
yep. It is tax rate setting season. Kind of the first step to that process is the completion of the prior year audit. And we need to complete that so that we kind of know what our beginning balance is of our unreserved fund balance. And that's the piece that feeds into the second step of the process, which is that we get to take another look at our estimated revenues for, in this case, fiscal 22-23. So being a couple of months into the year, we have a better sense than what we did back when the budget was prepared last fall and deliberated on over the winter. So we have an opportunity to revise those estimates based on the current knowledge. So in terms of what we know at this point, in terms of our revenues, we are looking at a significant increase in interest earnings on the town's cash reserves. As you know, we've been talking for the last couple of years, ever since the pandemic hit, that interest rates plummeted and we were earning next to nothing on the cash reserves. Well, since March, when the Federal Reserve decided that interest rates needed to go up to try and combat inflation, we've seen the benefit of that as well in terms of increases in rates available on our invested cash reserves, something that we obviously did not foresee back last fall and early winter before the inflation issues really kind of came to the forefront. So we are looking at an increase in projected interest revenues of a little more than $300,000. So we're going to propose to include that in our revised revenue estimates. Highway block grant numbers, I mean, typically we use the amount that we received in the prior year in our budget estimates, and then we're informed down the road as to what those payments will actually be. So we now know the actual number, which is that 599,000 number, a small change from the prior year of a little more than $8,000. We will be notified by Department of Revenue as to what our rooms and meals tax allocation will be. And that will happen later this month or the very first part of October as kind of the final step in the tax rate setting process. So that's kind of subject to change. I am hearing that those numbers may decline a little bit. The 1,997,000 is what we received in the prior year. And we use that as our estimate. There's a lot of different things that impact those numbers. The rate itself, the meals and rooms tax rate was reduced last year, so it was kind of unclear what the impact of that would be. Obviously, we're also coming out of the pandemic, and theoretically, there would be more people staying in hotels and eating meals out. So we weren't sure what the net effect of those issues would be. I am hearing that number could decline a little bit, maybe somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000. But that's just what I've heard from other finance managers and what I heard on a seminar, an NHMA seminar that I was attending the other day. So that's to be determined, but we could see a decrease there that will eat up some of that extra interest earnings number. Current use taxes, we're proposing to bring down by $100,000. That's always a very difficult number to estimate, to determine which parcels of land are going to be proposed to be taken out of current use, which generates this tax revenue. Based on the first couple of months, what we've seen, that number looks like it should be lower. So we proposed to reduce that by $100,000. And then this last item here is a kind of a one-time revenue from the state, out of the state surplus that was voted on, whereby the state is going to reimburse the town for 7.5% of the town's New Hampshire retirement expenses associated with firefighters and police officers. So that's actually based on last year's retirement contributions. So we have a pretty good idea of what that number should be, the $198,000, which is unanticipated revenue that should flow through to help reduce the tax rate. So those are the areas that we've determined should be revised. Our other big line items, auto registrations. Again, we are on pace with what we budgeted there. I don't see a need to revise those numbers. Similarly with building permits, I think the budgeted numbers that we have for that category are still solid and good to use.
The reason being is we received most of that revenue already in the early part for June, July, August, September. It slows down, and then really at the end of spring it picks up a little bit for May and June again, May and June. But we feel that where we're at right now, we're still comfortable with that number. I know that people are listening going, well, the whole housing starts are down, mortgage rates are up. No, we feel good with our building permits right now, because there are a lot of people that are in the queue still that couldn't get what they wanted done at their house or couldn't get what they wanted done, and the prices will be better for them that saved up for that. So that's why we feel building permits are this year. Next year we might have to lower it, but for this year we're okay.
On the current use, that's a pretty big swing from our original estimate. Do we have specific projects we think moved out of the year, or is it just based on run rate where we're at right now?
I think some of the current use actually hit earlier than we were projecting. Some of the projects hit in last fiscal year. We had a very good current use number last year
At the end of
over our
last year?
budget, yeah.
Okay.
Because some of our bigger projects actually moved up that we thought were going to delay until July-ish. So we got some current use for last year over budget. So that's why it's that kind of swing.
Yeah, I think our current use was over $200,000 higher than what we budgeted for last
year.
fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
But you're projecting this based on 2.5 months worth of revenues, right? So this is just the current revenues that you're projecting from?
We have a pretty good idea over the last 5 years when we give our revenue numbers. We use a 5-year average. So, they don't really fluctuate that much from year to year, except for interest, of course. But the rest of them are pretty constant. And then we look at what's there. We've had a couple of good, healthy building permit years. There are still a lot of building permits that need to be pulled for a couple of the bigger projects that are there. We have one going up in the north end of town. We have one going up in the south end of town that they have approvals for by the planning board to build. They haven't come in and pulled a building permit yet. So that's what I mean. And as those things slow down next in 2023, 24, we'll see in the budget, they'll slow down.
So the other piece of the estimated revenues analysis is how much, if any, from our undesignated fund reserve that the town council wants to use to help offset the tax rate. When this budget was prepared, we had used a number of $1,350,000, and we're looking. We want to give you a picture of where we are in terms of fund balance based on the audit that we've recently gone through. We haven't totally completed it yet, but we have a pretty good idea of where things are going to settle out. But we're looking for your input on what you want to do, if anything, with that $1,350,000 number that we had used when the budget was put together. If you look at where our undesignated fund balance was at the beginning of the prior fiscal year, as of June 30th, 2021, we were at $8.7 million. We had projected a use of fund balance to offset taxes in the amount of $1,650,000 for fiscal 21-22. Looking at the preliminary audit numbers, we actually did quite a bit better, I guess you would say, than what we expected. We had some excess revenues, part of which was that current use tax that we just mentioned. We did have an overage in auto registrations to the tune of a couple $100,000 as well, and some FEMA grant stuff left over from the pandemic that also hit in the 21-22 year. And we had a large balance of unexpended appropriations, and that is primarily from unfilled positions that occurred during the year. So that's salaries and wages, and it also impacts what we had to spend on health insurance and retirement expenses and all of that. So when you look at everything put together, we actually increased our undesignated fund balance by a little more than $260,000 during the fiscal 21-22 year. So we are looking at a number to begin this fiscal year of $8.9 million. So if we keep the number at $1,350,000 in what we are designating to use in the current year, that would bring the fund balance down to $7.6 million, assuming that we budget revenues and expenses exactly, which we know will not happen, but that is the projected balance as of the end of 22-23. This shows you kind of a year-by-year look at the undesignated fund balance and where we are in terms of a percent of the operating budget. And I think in the past, the town council has thought that fund balance number was getting a little bit too high, and that is the reason that there has been a use of that balance in the last several years to try and help reduce the tax rate and to bring that number down a little bit. As you can see, we were projecting to be at a percent of the operating budget at the end of 21-22 of 7.3%. We're actually at 9.2% because of what I just discussed with the excess revenues and the unexpended appropriations. But using the projected uses of fund balance going forward, we would still, show that we're kind of on track to get that percentage down. I don't anticipate we will have the same level of unexpended appropriations or excess revenues as we've had this past year going forward.
So I just got to correct one thing. That percent is based on the overall budgeted amount for school, town, and county. It's not operating expense for just the town. It's our net payment that we have to make to the school, plus county, plus general fund here. I just want that for the people at home. They don't think we're at 9.24% of our operating budget, $8 million. Oh my God, they're in 80. No, it's of the whole thing. Now, also remember, in 21-22, the school really reduced their operating budget than what we were projecting at the beginning by giving back a large chunk of their fund balance. I don't know what they're going to do in 22-23 with that, but all feelers, all things is that they're going to give back a significant amount of unused fund balance again, so we should be good. In looking at this, at the 9.24% and the $1.3 million, I'm very comfortable when looking at that to say 7.6 million that we're looking at the end of 22-23 is a good number. There are several things that are still up in the air that if they play out in our favor, we're good. If they don't play out in our favor, we have our fund balance to fall back on. So the 1.3 million that we were projecting to use, I think is still a good number to project to use. And like I said, I didn't want to give you all my budget tricks, but you kind of see where $1.4 million is, and that's covering those fuel pumps if we need to. But that's if everything plays out in our favor.
Right.
So I am saying that I would leave the $1.3 million worth of fund balance, $1,350,000 to be used to offset taxes, because that's a comfortable number. So that's my opinion, and that's my recommendation to the council.
Mark?
Yeah, do we have any idea or crystal ballness regarding the surplus because of unfilled positions going forward for a year? I mean, we hear about how hard it is to retain and replace staff.
We do have unfilled positions. However, we've been supplementing those unfilled positions in police mostly with overtime. So they're going to be well overspent their overtime budget to offset any savings we have right now with it. The other reason why there was $1.5 million of unexpended money is we had the SAFER grant. And in the 21-22 budget, we had budgeted for 4 firefighters for a full year. SAFER grant come in. We still had those 4 firefighters, but we received money from March, April, May, June, 4 months of the year of that money was also helping for that. And we did have some openings gearing up to in the beginning of the year with fire. So, but right now, my fire department, I'm down 1 person. My police department, I'm down like 4. DPW, I am down a bunch in the general fund down over there, but we are filling those positions. So we would have a better estimate after we come forward and do the first quarter financial report, which will be ending at the end of this month. So we'll have a better estimate and we'll be able to give you an estimate of where we see our projection of salary savings to be.
Thank you.
But then again, we also, on the other hand, gasoline, we budgeted, I think, $2.25. I just signed an invoice and it was $3.02 for 7,500 gallons. And we get, every 6 weeks, we're getting that, 7,500 gallons of gas at whatever the market rate is, because I don't want to sign a year deal at when it was up at $5 a gallon. I'm like, I hate to say it, we'll take the rack rate when we need it because it's got to come back down. And it is slowly coming back down, just not to a point where we can pull the trigger and say, let's get into a term.
Get a 5-year deal.
Yeah, let's get into a deal with it. So, so there's ebbs and flows. We might have salary savings, but those salary savings are also helping. The other thing is that salt and sand, we're estimating to be at, I don't know, a big increase. I just got told by Kyle yesterday that it's even more. It went up even more. So, pray for a mild winter, but things of that sort. So, so there's ebbs and flows in the budgets. Just because we have this big savings in salaries right now through the first quarter, we're going to have other expenses.
Right.
You agree with that, Tom?
I do.
All righty.
So does, if I might,
Yes.
the 1.35 million that we calculated out to a tax rate that we were comfortable with or whatever, does everything stays the same at this point, or?
If Tom hits the next slide, I think it's on the next slide, right? We're at $3.93. We're estimating our portion of the tax rate to be.
That shows the projected increases and decreases in the revenue items that we went over. The one thing that's not reflected here is that I am expecting that rooms and meals number may come down. That may affect the rate by 3 or 4 cents potentially at a maximum. So we could be looking at, it'll still be under $4. And I think at the budget time, we were projecting a tax rate of 4.02. So we're still gonna be better than what we were projecting at that point, mainly because of those increases in interest earnings.
Okay, so you're still thinking 1.35 at this point is a good number?
Yeah, because there's some things out there that if
I
they don't
was
go in our
just wondering
way.
if we should even reduce it a little bit.
No, I think
Because of what
1.3.
we see coming up next year and the budget magic you need to come up with.
I think the 1.3 is still good.
Okay.
I do.
Excellent. So we're all set?
Just need a motion to accept. Sorry, just need a motion to accept the fund balance number to offset taxes as $1,350,000.
So moved.
Question.
The motion's made.
Motion's made. We'll have a discussion. Is there a second? Second. Motion by Tom Koenig, seconded by Andy. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No,
Barbara?
When do you need that number by? I'd like to wait a little bit longer before
We can't really
commit.
wait.
That's why I'm asking.
We really can't wait because we need to get in the queue. Because if we don't get in the queue for tax rates, their DRA is gonna start
Okay.
tax rates on October 4th.
I was just
Yeah, if we don't get in the
pushing
queue,
it.
yeah, I know.
There's a panic in his voice.
No, we don't- well,
I love to shake them up like
yeah,
that.
you do shake me up. No, the reason why there's a panic in my voice is because I love those Christmas bills.
Yeah.
The tax bills that are
right.
due the week before Christmas. So the sooner we get in the queue, the
Sooner
sooner
we'll
we'll
get
get our rate back.
And they
They're,
can
you
mail
know,
the bills,
they're-
yep,
Yeah, so I don't want
before Christmas.
before Christmas. And we won't have, sorry, all the state numbers will be finalized by the time we get our tax rate. So we'll know what our meals and rooms are. We'll know what everything else is. So, but that's
Okay.
why I'm asking for that.
Everybody
you.
else set?
Mhm.
I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstained, 600. And next item, Tom, is the Investment Policy Council's to review and consider the approval of the town's investment policy for the investment of public funds held by the town treasurer in accordance with RSA 35:9 and RSA 41:29 for fiscal year 2022 and 23.
This is really a housekeeping item.
Right.
We'd have to do this every year, make our auditors happy. We review, Tom reviews this investment policy every year, and it hasn't changed in the 18 years I've been here and probably the 20 years before that. It's pretty much, well, I would love, to reassure the residents of Merrimack, 100% of our money is collateralized, which means that if a bank fails, we're gonna get our money. So we do collateralization. This investment policy really is for those banks that we can put uncollateralized money in, but we do not do that. So with that, I'll let Tom go.
There's not a heck of a lot more to say than that. This is something we need to do on an annual basis, but because of the RSA requirements. But I'm here to tell you that I think our investment policy still works. I don't really see the need for any modifications or changes, so I would recommend that you ratify it as it currently exists.
So moved.
Second.
Is that an adequate motion?
Yes.
Very good. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstained, it's 600. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Having these monitors, did that work better for you with the CIP in front of you so you
Oh,
can
it's
kind of
perfect.
see it instead of trying
Oh,
to
yeah.
figure it out?
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of trying to squint after that or
Or
crank your
break my
neck back
neck,
to that
yeah.
one.
I do feel handicapped not having a mouse in
Yeah, I
front
do
of me.
too.
though.
I,
know.
honestly, I was gonna say, is there any way we can have that so we can pull up our own?
That's something that Justin and Nicholas will have to look into on that because these are all tied into that machine.
Yeah,
But to have a pointer or something so that when you're asking a question,
There
we can
should
point
be
to
a-
that number.
mouse
it'll
or
be-
pointer.
Yeah, we'll get that working next
I
time.
ju, I mean, if I pull up something, like I wanted to look up something in the town code, but I couldn't do it here, I had to go to my phone.
Yeah, these are not computers. These are really dummy
Just monitors.
terminals
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
tied into
It's
that
sliding
laptop
on.
right
So
there.
it
It's
probably
just
isn't
split.
possible.
It would be if, you want to approve $15,000, I can get you all
That's what I
Surface
just
Pros.
listened to tonight and CIP and everything.
So in other
All
words,
right.
they don't have any memory in them, they don't have.
Right,
any-
it's
There's
just a monitor.
nothing, it's just a monitor. Yeah.
All right. Finally, on the agenda, approval of September 8th, 2022 minutes.
I move the minutes of September 8th, 2022, town council minutes with the corrections.
Second.
Are there any corrections?
I had an issue on page 2, line 10. It said that stated that elected officials should be watching 14-hour-long webinars. And it's in plural, and I meant 14 hours worth of webinars. There were like 7 of them that were a couple hours each or something like that. So I
I'm glad
I
you
didn't
cleared
mean
that.
to imply 28 or 40 hours worth of webinars. So I was just going to replace long with worth of. recommendation.
Right, good.
Maybe I said it wrong, but that's certainly what was intended. That's all I found when I looked through it.
Anything further? No? All right. I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Did you want to abstain on those? Says you were excused. Were you here?
No, so I abstain.
Yep, it's not critical. I think you could probably vote in favor of them both.
Yeah, right.
I
As
just
long
want
as
to
you
make sure.
abstain.
Perfect. So it's a 501. What? You okay? Did I do something?
No, I just,
Mr.
I didn't
Chair-
hear all that discussion, so I guess Barbara decided to abstain.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, before you get into comments from the press public and everything else, I know in the minutes it reminded me of your 14 hours long. As you know, the council was there very late on election night, waiting to sign the boxes. I asked the question of what happened. Why was that happening? I was informed by the town clerk that the state changed the regulations of sealing up boxes of ballots.
Yeah.
They have to be done in a certain way. They have to have the number of ballots in there. There was a lot of additional things that had to be done by the deputy clerk and the clerk in order for you to sign the ballots. They have to be sealed in such a specific way with the tape and the way the lettering is, and nothing can be signed until they're all sealed. There's a lot of new rules that went into place I was informed of. So that is why you were there at such a late hour, why everybody else walked out the door. It was because there's only certain people that could seal those boxes. So hopefully in November, it won't be as long. There's also
He said that with a straight
Yeah.
face.
there was also they call over and under counts. So if somebody bulleted somebody on the ballot, that ballot had to be hand counted. If somebody didn't pay attention and they filled in all the circles where it says vote for 2 and they voted for 4, that ballot has to be hand counted. So that's why there was a lot of hand counting going on, more than normal for it. And these are all new rules of over and under counting to make sure that every vote is counted.
Okay.
Okay? Sorry. Thank you for letting me.
Nope, I appreciate that there was an explanation. Comments from the council, from the press, comments from the public, and comments from the council. Nancy.
I just wanted to mention that I had the opportunity to attend the first football game of the season at Merrimack High School last week, and there were the opening of the new concession stand there, and I know Laura's World Fund did a lot. Jen DeFelice, Sean Powers, and a number of private businesses in town contributed man hours and electrical and plumbing, and it's a phenomenal opportunity for all of our kids and our parents and guests in town who come to attend football games and other sports activities and graduations, et cetera, on the field. One of the things that I said I would mention tonight is I thought it might be a great idea for any Eagle Scout looking for a project. One of the things that they said might be helpful is to have some picnic tables and those kinds of things added for people to sit on, and so they said, yeah, mention that at the town council meeting, and in case any Eagle Scouts are looking for a way to contribute, that might be a great thing. So could certainly reach out to the people that have coordinated that. So that's it.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. It was a well-tended event.
Yep, that's very cute.
Yep. Anything further? Tom?
I just want to point out that I thought the election went extremely smoothly. Obviously, it wasn't one of the ones where we had massive turnouts. And the upcoming one in November, we expect to have many, many more voters come out. But I want to thank everybody that ran in the elections and did their part, and all of us that worked on it. I've been working these elections for a lot of years, and I'm very confident that we run a clean, fair election. I saw it again this time. Appreciate the help from everybody, and we look forward to November's general election and another similar, clean, easy election, although many more people.
Yes.
But thank you, Merrimack.
Great.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Lon, seconded by Barbara to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained. 600. Thank you.